morning. Welcome to Guitar Talk. I'm Ken Unack. I'm here with Walt Barlow and Mark Armstrong. And we've been talking about various styles of the early bluesmen. And we've just finished up with last week with Lightnin' Hopkins. Today we're going to talk about Blind Lemon Jefferson. So a little bit about Blind Lemon. He recorded near 100 sides, and he was the first to really be commercialized. He was so successful that the whole genre, basically, of race records was formed. And all of the record companies were down south looking for more blues players because his sales of his records were really excellent. Incidentally, this is also why there's so much blues was recorded. There were many, many players that played various styles, and they only wanted blues players. So they'd hold an open audition, and everybody in say like Clarksdale would show up that played, and they only chose the blues players to record. So that's why we have so much early blues. It wasn't that everybody was playing the blues, but it was the blues that was selling and recording on the recordings. So Lemon, he had a sort of a very long, well, I won't say long, he died in his 30s, but he did a lot of things. He was a professional wrestler at one time. He was born around 1893. And the style he developed is, I guess we could say, quirky. It's very difficult to imitate. I only know a couple of players right now that can play him and sound like Lemon. One of them is Ari Eisinger. He's got a few CDs out and videos, but he's analyzed Lightnin's style, and he's got it down. But Lightnin played with 5/4, 2/4. He doesn't really do a shuffle. He sometimes plays like straight eights, or they're half swing, half straight. It's really hard to follow him. But he has some nice, interesting licks. And
now, is this Lightnin' or?
This is...
Lemon, I'm sorry.
Lemon, yes.
Lemon
or Lightnin', yeah.
We'll get them mixed up.
We're in the L's.
But speaking of Lightnin', we mentioned last week that he met Lemon when Lightnin' was 8 years old. He met Lemon. And Lemon let him play with him, and he became his lead boy. So when you listen to some of the licks that we'll show today, you actually can hear some Lightnin' in him. Obviously, he picked up a lot from Lemon.
Right.
So anyway, without further ado, we'll start looking at his style. I should probably say a couple more things before we begin, and that is that no two Lemon songs sound alike. He plays them differently. They're pure Lemon. You have to really get into them, listen to them for a long time. And what you can take away is quite a bit. So I put some Lemon licks here in the key of A together come from Matchbox Blues, and a little bit from a blues called Yo-Yo Blues, I think. Maybe we're going to do this. My fingers are starting to get quirky. Do you want to start out?
Sure.
Start out.
Well, I'm not going to be doing the A blues. I'm going to do the C blues.
You're going to do the C blues.
C blues,
okay.
Which is another thing, which is something that we didn't see with Lightnin' Hopkins. We didn't see really any C blues. And he also gets a little more into the alternating bass style than it seems than just the monotonic. Though he's kind of in between, again, like everything else, he's kind of in between playing monotonic bass, playing no bass, playing alternating bass. So tends to, though, one thing I noticed is he tends to heavily do the backbeat. And I think it's mostly on dead strings. He's just not really caring about, and that's part of, I think, what gives him that groove, that heavy backbeat that he's always got going pretty much through everything he's doing. So anyway, So what I got is I learned a song called Bad Luck Blues. And Bad Luck Blues is mostly a C blues, and what he's basically playing is a C chord, you know, doing some finger picking, and then he's adding the blues note, the E flat, to it, which he's reaching with his pinky. So it's a little awkward because it's in the lick he goes, and he hops the finger every time. Basically what he was doing, and then he basically just keeps singing over that and plays very slight variations. And so most of the variations are on the turnaround. So and basically he has two that he's either playing it, and he plays it as, or he's playing it, and he plays it and he harmonizes it. But essentially the big thing is, you know, just getting used to playing the C chord with the reach. And then putting this little, you know, so basically the notes he's playing is G, the E flat, the C, and the A and the G on this string. And he's just putting that and then when he kind of goes to the F chord, which he's not really following the blues. Again, it's very quirky. And I got to say, the way I'm playing this is not anyway the way he's playing it. I tried to mimic his, like you said, his feel. Forget it. It's got his own way of feeling rhythm. And I mean, I'm sure if I studied it for months, it would make sense after a while if you'd immerse yourself, but just to listen to him here and there, it's like, whoa, this is different.
It's a little bouncy.
It's bouncy, but it's also straighter, which is the thing. It's not da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. It's very clippy, you know. Yeah, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, but anyway, that's. So, and that was stuff we never saw with Lightning Hopkins. We weren't seeing that alternating bass, you know. And, but we did see with Lightning, though, he does take the. So he does, you know, he's working with that same chord form, and he does kind of the same trick. So now we're kind of seeing how you can take the same idea and put it in a different key. And you know, so that's kind of, you know, an interesting little takeaway. And there you go. That's probably something that Lightning picked up from.
Yeah, I think
Blind
that
Lemon,
is.
and then just shifted around and played around with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
The other thing about that, down here in C, he plays a lot of alternating, but he likes to do that.
Right. Yeah, he does abandon at time the bass and just does licks or does other things. It's not about slavishly doing the bass line. That was one thing. It's kind of just is when he can, which is most of the time. Yeah.
What about the notes for improvisation here?
Right, so pretty much, I mean, he's pretty much using most of them in just that lick. I mean, the other ones that we might want to add is the B flat, you know, and then you could add the D, and then you could put the F in there if you wanted to. So it's basically I'm putting the C scale. So I'm playing G, A, B flat, C, D, E flat, that's the blue note I'm adding, then E, F, and G. And all that's right there on your fingers, which what I often call stupid pinky tricks, which is just hopping the pinky. And then I usually grab the A with my middle finger, like you're just kind of rocking back and forth between the D string and the G string to get that. As a matter of fact, there's a Reverend Gary Davis tune that I learned years ago. And that's what he does through the whole song, is he's got that little rhythm going with that, and it's just hopping the finger like that. So.
What about going from like C?
Yep. So for
F.
Well, so pretty much it's like almost all the same notes. The only note you really want to drop out is the E natural, because the E natural is, you know, this like it's going to clash with the F chord. So if you've got an F chord, and you're playing the E natural with it, kind of harsh. But other than that, all those other notes all work with the F. that's going to work with the F chord. So.
Okay. Going to the G. Let's look at.
All right. So now going to the G.
I hear him do this.
Uh-oh.
I hear you too.
Forgot to show my phone.
Unfortunately, it's in the right key.
It fits.
Focus on that for a second.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
I usually leave it in the car.
So my fingers are starting to calm down.
All right,
which
well,
is something we should address some show about nervousness and.
Right. I
some
mean,
show.
yeah. But let me just to finish up your thought with the G
Yeah.
chord. I mean, basically, you can do all the notes that you were doing on the C chord for the G chord. So now you can go back to having the E. You can do the E flat, the C. The B now is the new note that you really are adding to this thing, because now the B is in the G chord, and then you still can the B flat and the A. So you still got all those notes there. So it's basically like there's certain notes that, at least the way I think of improvisation, that want to resolve on certain chords, and so you just kind of either be aware that they want to resolve. So it's like if I'm on the G chord and I play a C, that wants to go to the B. That wants to go to a chord tone. That's really strong. So if I hit this note, I'm just hearing that wants to move in some way. And the same thing if I'm on the C and I play the F. And the F's in a fine tone, but you don't want to stay there, because it really has that pull down back to the, amen.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the amen ending. Yes, exactly. Anyway, so that's some of the thoughts that I would have in playing in C.
Okay.
Okay.
I think I've looked at some of this stuff here, and he kind of shortens things like that.
Yeah.
It's not really I don't know what kind of a beat it is.
Yeah, I just like. Right. Yeah, he's dropping beats all over the place, yeah. Or. Yeah.
That's a very Lemon-esque ending lick.
Yep.
He also does in C for endings. You were doing it, but he
Right.
but he hits the G
Right.
repeatedly.
Yeah. Yeah.
He plays almost like a contrapuntal classical style, somewhat,
To a
in
degree,
some of
yeah.
the things he does.
Yeah.
Yeah, particularly in C. Or,
I'm learning.
You're learning. He's learning. We're all soaking this all up.
so the other thing, I think I might be able to play this now.
All right.
Gotta do that again. Now, if you notice, there's no turnaround really.
Right.
He stays on this one chord. But this is something in Matchbox Blues, and he plays in many other little pieces of it. This long pull off from the A form. So it's a triplet, one, and triplet. Yeah, and he varies that to play two triplets there. And when he goes, excuse me, when he goes to an E chord from the A, he'll often do this walk down. 1 and 2 and 3 and and it'll come up here with. And you've got, you incorporate these into your playing. You've got some lemon sounds. Let's see. Oh, he does. And he does this. I think Lightning got it from him.
Yeah. Ah, yes.
That's how he ends sometimes. But he does it a lot, quite a bit. So there's a lot of these little triplet things, figures, if you want to add lightning to your playing.
Yep.
Just simply play triplets and a long pull off. He does a lot of sliding around. This is really the same thing. He's playing A, C sharp,
Yeah, C.
up, only moves it all up an octave, and then little arpeggio there. That to a D. You can stay there if you want. He does play this, which is really a variation of his
The other.
C lick.
Yeah.
You know.
Yep.
He's got some, in E he plays alternating bass when he plays in E.
Okay.
Between the, and sometimes he'll do them backwards. And for a turnaround in E, he's got a really nice one.
Okay.
I just learned it like 2 days ago.
Yes.
So I'm gonna have to play it really slow, but he plays a B7, this position, and he hits it. This is an example of him playing so straight. He hits a F sharp, and then he just arpeggiates it, hits the F sharp again, plays the chord, and then he plays. And that's a really cool lick.
Yeah.
We were trying to analyze a little bit of it before. We got a B7.
Yep.
Then he plays, which I was thinking it might be a diminished.
Right. But it's kind of the middle of the F sharp 7 chord.
It's like it's the middle of the F sharp 7
Chord.
to a
F7,
F7,
and then which is basically like a B7.
a B7. And the essence of this is this line coming down
Yeah.
here, really.
Well, and then he repeats, and then he does. That's the line. That's the line in the other part of that line.
That's right.
Yeah. Because he's as you do. So he's kind of connecting it on the other end.
Right.
Now, whether that's just his ear or he thought about it, we'll never know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. But speaking of the ear and the blues,
Yeah.
you know, last week we were talking, I think before the show, about how do you tell someone this is an E and why is this an E?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I looked up, it's been many years since I took acoustics. So I looked up online, you know, the Overtone series again and all that stuff. And I found something interesting that I don't know if I ever knew, but I probably did at one time. But if we play the E, and you look at the overtone series that are naturally generated, and this is going to apply strictly to the blues. It's a hypothesis here.
I know what you're going to say.
You know what I'm going to
I
say?
know what you're going to say.
Okay, well, what I'm going to say is when you go up this series, you have an octave, and then you have a fifth,
An
and
octave.
eventually you get the third, and you get the You don't get the F. You do get the F sharp, but the final overtone is a G natural.
Flat 7.
Flat 7.
Yep.
And we don't hear that because we have tempered tuning.
Right.
And we have to have the leading tone, but the naturally occurring 7th over that E is the flat 7.
Yep. I have for years been saying Mixolydian is the roundest scale. It has no sharp edges at all. Major scale has that leading tone, and the leading tone jumps out at you. It's something you have to deal with. Mixolydian, everything kind of just flows. Think Jerry Garcia. He made a living playing in Mixolydian.
Playing Mixolydian.
Yep.
And it's the basis, I think, of why the bluesmen used all the 7th chords, because they're hearing that naturally. You know, that it's really a natural way to hear. And it might be the attraction that we all have for the acoustic blues or the blues themselves, but we're not quite aware of what it is about them, because it's more natural than our artificial temperament. You know? So that's quite interesting. So.
Oh yeah. No, temper tuning brought a lot into music, but took things away from music, which was interesting. Temper tuning allowed us to play in different keys simultaneously, you know, to modulate, which we couldn't really do before that. And as even way back in the past, a violin player or a horn player, especially a violin player, would tell you G flat and F sharp are not the same note. That you actually tune it by ear and you actually put it into tune, and it's ever so slightly different. So it's like, and temper tuning, the 3rd, like if you're in C, the E is really out of tune to what you would want to hear as this rich, beautiful interval. So the 3rds are really kind of just like meh.
Aren't they sharp a little bit?
Yeah, and they're a mess. And the fifths are close, but they're not perfect, unlike the name.
So that's a little aside
yeah.
on this blues. And it kind of fits in with why some of them may have tuned the E and A strings a little flat, because it flattens makes the flat 7 not quite so flat, and it makes the 3rd not quite so flat, but they're still flat.
Right. Yep.
So it actually fits in more with the natural overtone series.
Yeah.
So when I read that and saw it, I said, "Oh my goodness."
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. No,
So anyway, back to Lemon. Let's see. He does some other things here. I think Lightning may have gotten this from Lemon. As we know, Lightning will be playing around like this, and then all of a sudden he'll start to play some kind of a boogie, or shuffle rather, or he'll play a straight boogie-woogie. And Lemon likes to do this. In A here, he's on an E chord, and he comes down to an A, he'll go into this, just like that.
Yeah.
So he will throw these boogies in at his own whim, whenever. And it's something you can incorporate into your style, you know.
Well, that was similar to that Lightning Hopkins tune I was looking at last week. You know, Watch My Fingers, which is, all of a sudden he just goes in, breaks into that for, because I can.
Yeah, and Lemon does the same thing.
Too,
Yeah, he's got to talk. He's always like, yeah, this is more mindless. Exactly.
Particularly when he's coming down to that E chord, because you can grab that right off of that. Like that. So that's something you can incorporate into your playing. As far as turnarounds go, though, I think if you look at what he does in C, and then transpose that to the other keys, you've got him. That one I played here, that's really just his turnaround in C that he.
Right. Yeah, and the song I was doing didn't really have a turnaround. It has that lick on the G chord. But then you stay on the do, and then he just starts singing, and then he starts playing the lick, and then he just starts playing the lick again. He doesn't really give you a G again.
So I think in C, if you work on C, you've got to work on this cutting things short all the time. Now there's one. This is really basically the same thing we do in E here, but do it in C. And you start on the 3rd fret, and you start on the 2nd beat of the measure. So it'd be 1, 2. So we've got a G, B flat, and E.
Yep.
And just walk it down chromatically to a C chord. And put a little thing in there, or a lemon. Then you've got it. Let's see.
I do think we are a timing thing.
Oh,
Yes.
so it's time to go.
It is time to go.
So maybe we should do, what do you want to do, C?
Yeah, we'll do C blue.
3, 4, 2, 2. We're getting there.